Cool.
Hello.
So, good evening, sir. So we are about to do the tactic of the our um to call this server administration. So task six is the to join Windows 10 to the main Windows Server 2016. So in the previous task, we installed Windows 10 in a new virtual machine. So it's already installed there, and we are ready to set up everything. So in this task, you are asked to perform joining a Windows 10 workstation to our domain. Recall that a domain is a local area network or LAN with workstation and servers under control of one central security server or group of servers. These servers, called controllers, refer to a database that keeps track of users, their passwords, and what they're permitted to access. In other words, a domain is controlled. It's a controlled LAN that provides a single login for users to gain access to network resources like file storage and network printing. So the principal benefit of joining a workstation to a domain is central authentication. With a single login, you can access different services and resources without logging into what each one. Another benefit is that settings in a computer's operating system can be changed or controlled by the network. Thus, if a computer needs a certain configuration to function fully on the network, computers belonging to the domain can receive that configuration automatically. So, to start our task 6, we have the uh, downloaded, we just downloaded the video. It is this to start our uh, topic. So let's start.
This lesson, we're going to be joining our Windows 10 workstation to our domain. We're also going to be renaming the computer to something that'll be more recognizable. So the first thing we need to do is open VirtualBox, and we need to make sure that our domain controller is powered on
Domain
and our
controller.
Windows 10 VM is powered on. They both have to be.
Uh, how to hold on. So we need to start both. Start bang both. So power on man daw. Ano ba? Gosh. This is the so that PCS domain, I think. Start. Next is start. We will both have this cookies to virtual second. Next is
Foundation. Screen kadagan di.
let me check something. Lara related na.
Mana tong dati nga di mo open no?
Anta. So, as said in the instruction, first instruction is we have opened both boot machine and
Powered on at the same time, and they have to be connected to the same network. So if you didn't use my net,
same network pa. Same network. Lasat Family Network Cloud. Lasat Family Network Cloud. So,
that network setup that I'm using, just make sure that whatever you're using, it's the same. So right here I can see that my Windows 10 VM is on a NAT, and if I click over here on the domain controller, This domain controller is connected to a NAT network, so we need to match that. Right click on the Windows 10 VM.
Wait lang. But we don't have to follow that next step. Kasi working naman. Lahat network naman. Both naman nasa
And choose settings. And I'm going to go down to network. And under the attached to, I'm going to change it to NAT network. And we're going to select my NAT network. I'll click OK.
In
And then
the
we can
previous
just
activity,
verify.
in the previous activity, I think we configured it out already before alongside installing the Windows 10 Lasat. So we are
that
good.
they're on the same network. So if I just look at this, I can see NAT network and it's my NAT network. Click on the Windows 10 VM, NAT network, and it's selected to my NAT network. So now what we need to do is pop over to our Windows 10 VM and go ahead and reboot the VM. Anytime you make a hardware or settings change on a VM in VirtualBox,
Since wala naman may chain, VirtualBox, so hindi namin mag-start.
you want to go ahead and restart the VM
And
to let the
just
changes
continue.
take effect. So we'll wait for the VM to boot back up, and then we'll rename the computer and join it.
Full screen muna, sorry. Go. Sorry. Maybe lag. Okay. I'll do this screen. Ano yun siya? Ano ang size niya? Ano yung dito pa yan sa...
Sige, agway. Dili ito kitong ano eh.
Gamay lang siya. Ano na ako.
Katong sa.
Ayun, wala akong sorry. Sorry lang. So,
To the domain. Okay, so the computer has come back online, so I'm going to hit right control and delete. And we'll type in my password here. And it's not wanting to resize the resolution like it should, so I'm just going to minimize it and drag it like this. And a lot of times that allows it to resize the resolution. There we go. We can see the dynamic resolution is now working. So I'm going to hit right control and F and go into full screen mode. And now I'm going to hit the start button in the bottom left hand corner, and I'm going to type in C and D. The first thing we need to do is...
So, this is now.
Open command prompt and make sure that we're on the same network as our domain controller. And we can see...
I see something.
Dapat daw same
we're getting a
network.
169
same
auto
network.
configuration IP, and what that means is that we're not reaching the DHCP server. Now, I'm not sure if that's because we just booted up the machine. It should be grabbing an IP address from the NAT network DHCP.
Wait on, I check for the protecting. Ano daw na to ang main. Ano na to? Ano ba? One second. Same default gateway, so ganyan, direct the same.
But what we're gonna do is let me just run this again. Okay, so now that I run ipconfig again, it just took a moment. Now we have a 10.0.2.7 IP address, but that's not on the same network as our domain controller, which is on 192.168.0.1. This is a problem with VirtualBox. VirtualBox, the DHCP server, does not recognize what the default gateway is or what the network ID is. The NAT network only assigns IP addresses in the 10 subnet regardless of what your network actually is. So what we're gonna have to do is change this IP version 4 manually, okay? Now, if we had the DHCP server role installed on our Windows Server domain controller, we wouldn't have this issue. We'd be able to turn off the DHCP server on our NAT network and use the Windows Server as a DHCP server. But we haven't done that yet, so we're gonna have to settle for setting a static IP address. So in the bottom left corner, click the Start button, and we're gonna click the Settings over here. And we're gonna go to Network and Internet. Now, We're going to click on change
Network and internet.
adapter options here at the bottom.
Adapter. Okay.
And we'll right click on Ethernet and choose properties. And I'm going to uncheck IP version 6 since we're not using that. I'm going to
IP version 6.
select Internet Protocol version 4 and choose properties. And I'm going to specify an IP address. So I'm going to select use the following options here at the bottom. And we'll right click on Ethernet and choose properties. And I'm going to uncheck IP.
IP basic internet.
IP version 6 since we're not using that. I'm going to select Internet Protocol version 4 and choose properties. And I'm going to specify an IP address. So I'm going to select use the following IP address. Okay, and we're just going to give it 192.168.0 since that's what my NAT network is configured to. And
Not network. Diba? Oo naman eh. 10 to 10 to 10.
Asa? Sa ano?
Kuha
Katong sa dati?
10 to 10 to 5. Or more.
Katong gigamit last time?
Jadi kay gina-change nga ang IPv4 nilagay po with ang IPv4 reset atin pa din. Gina-change.
And I'm just going to assign it to .100. We could use anything except for .0 as the last subnet. We couldn't use .0 because that's our network ID. And we couldn't use 10 because our domain controller is using 10. And we can't use 255 because that's the broadcast IP. So we could use anything in between 1 and 254, excluding 10 because 10's in use. So what I'm just going to use is .100.
So, follow na to. And we're going to participate for the
100.
If I press tab, it will auto-complete the subnet mask. Now this is mathematically calculated based on the IP address that you're using. That's a whole different course, understanding the subnet mask and how IP works in subnetting. I'm not going to get into that right now. Just know that if you enter the IP address here at the top, you press tab, it'll auto-complete it for you. You don't have to worry about it. All right, so for the default gateway, we're going to do 192.168.0.1. Now, not
so, into
9 times out of 10, if we go back to our command prompt here, we can see that the default gateway that was assigned by DHCP is
bakit na lagi ata ka? Tinahatak mo lang yun. Tinakatawa naman pa. Hindi naman na makalangin siya yung kata.
Narandara ka sa ano?
Itong IP kay same naman siya sa ito ang main.
one. Generally, that is your router's IP address. So if you have a switch that your computer is connected to, you would input that IP address here. It's not always .1. It could be .10 or .20 or .50. It could be anything, but it's generally the IP of your networking switch that you're connected to. Now, for the preferred DNS server, I get a lot of questions on this. Like, where do you find this IP address? How do you know what it is? It's the IP address of your DNS server that is on your network. In our case, if you remember, our domain controller has the DNS server role, so it's the IP address of our domain controller, which, if you remember, is .10. So 192.168.
Domain controller. Pwede. Sampai nakakaroon. Yun nga. Hmm. Di ko magawa.
So pwede na siya mag-escape lang.
Ay na murag connected ang gud nga to ang ang yun. Eh, wa man yung kita tong isang niya. Murag connect na mo gud ang ato ang default gateway ba? So, din na ko.
8.0.
Wait.
So pwede siya.
Remember, our domain controller has the DNS server role, so it's the IP address of our domain controller, which, if you remember, is .10. So 192.168.0.10. If we don't configure the DNS server correctly, we will not be able to join the domain, because the DNS server is what resolves itflee.com, which is the domain that we're going to try and join. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to hit close, and I'll close out of this, and we're going to run ipconfig one more time. And we can see here that we are getting an IP version 4 address of 192.168.0.100. Okay, so now we're on the same network.
What?
We could try.
Ano? Tama na. Kanina na.
Try and ping the domain controller, but the Windows firewall is going to block that on the domain controller. By default, you used to be able to ping and it would allow ICMP requests to go through, but now Microsoft blocks ping requests. So if I try to ping 192.168.0.10, I'm going to get a reply here because I have enabled it, but more than likely you will get a timeout back. So basically, what you're going to see, if I just try and ping an IP address that's not valid, what you're going to see something like this, where it's just going to say trying to ping, and then it'll say destination host unreachable, or it'll just say that there was a timeout, request timed out, just like that. Okay, so now that we're on the same network, what we're going to do now is try to rename the computer, and then we're going to join it to the domain. So again, under settings here, I'm just going to close out of this in case you closed yours. We're going to hit the start button, and we're going to click settings on the left side, and we're going to choose system. Then we're going to go down to about here at the bottom, and we're going to choose rename this PC. And right now it's set to this desktop dash, and I think that's like a serial number. It's randomly generated. What we're going to type in is ITF for IT Fleet, and then WS for Workstation, and I'm just going to call it 0.
ITF. Sim domain name man yung gamit. F ang gamiton. Workstation 01.
So IT Fleet Workstation.
IP3 man daw. Ito kaya itong domain mo is yan. Ano nga itong
01. And we'll click next. And it's going to say you need to restart your computer. I'm going to say restart later. Next, we're going to go to connect to work or school.
Okay,
Restart later.
and connect to work or I access
work or school.
And it's going to say you need to restart your computer. I'm going to say restart later. Next, we're going to go to connect to work or school.
Connect to work or
Sige ito. Hello kita siya gipindot. Ano siya gipindot niya number mag-prompt.
Tara. Access work or school.
And down here at the bottom, we're going to say connect.
Now, ako. Click mo ko.
And again, at the bottom, there's an alternate actions, and we're going to say join this device to a local Active Directory domain, because that's what we have set up. It's local on this network, and we're going to join it to a domain.
Wait lang ta. Loading. For network.
Tomate.
Wow. Hayaku, PC-chan. Tara. Ang giingon is ano daw, di ba? Join this device to a local active directory domain. So, click. And tara.
So the domain is called itflea.com, and I'm going to click.
Okay, itong ipangalan. Kapital mo ito na, pcs.com.
Next.
So, next
And-
na siya. And next. Okay, itong pangalan natin. Lasat Pandi. Lasat Pandi. Okay.
This,
Oh, well,
since
yeah,
we got this
that's
pop-up
right.
saying enter your account to verify you have permissions to connect to the domain, this means that we are connected to the server. If we were not
connected na
connected
to
to the
the
domain
server.
controller, we would
Okay.
not get this.
Kay gihatagan naman pag yan nga pop-up. Kay kung ana sa video kay kung dili ito pa connected, dili daw siya maghatag o login credential.
Message it would say it was unable to find it or unable to resolve it.
Hindi nga mouse
Also,
yun.
under the IP version 4 settings, if we did not specify the correct DNS server, it would not be able to resolve itflea.com. So I'm going to type in administrator, and I'm going to type in the password for that account. And this account, if you remember, is the account that we created when we installed Windows Server 2016. So it's our domain administrator account.
Kung mag-start kasi mo kay ma-start sa ko
Sa imuha lang and visit sa
Ano?
cursor na sa imuha. No.
ay kailangan pa ka maghawa sa init ay kanang mo item sa init. Kaya pag maabot mo ano dire kay kani ata mo maklik-click
Account. Okay. Now I'm going to click OK.
Kasi mas hindi ko galtap.
Mugay nating ako akong madrag man pud akong mouse, maabot para abot sa itong
Ang password. Mo yata na tong 1 to 6.
ako ko na buntot check. Dapat ni ko check out.
Or basig ang kanang Lasat
Okay,
pati
basig.
kay may number.
Namay ko din po. Mali gid wow.
No, dapat day o day ano sa ano no? Sa
Dapat
sticky.
sinundan. Tama man. Tumat.
Bali password lang mali. Pero tama agad iyang username. Mali. Tama. Balik ko. Wait. Makita na mag-jump. Tara dong alat. Ano Ay,
video task. Ay, bata.
Ang
Sabi
sanya
ko.
ko dili mo gunong maliw ko pa. Ay,
Ah,
disconnect daw ang any desk door. Yang mo connect ko usab. Retry lang ba para ano? Aka na daw. Nani gawas?
Ano. Try ito ano. Last part. Another itong video. Skip
Sa
dito
ano?
sa nagbatag password na. Task
Sa
5.
task 5 na wait lang peta ang video Drea.
Ano na dito? Make your account ng password na again. Hindi ba last at pan? Except lang ko, nakalimot ko nga na yun. What's that? Under 2, 3 di dong may nagumang libre mo.
Part 2 yata to.
Part 1.
Kami na
First part
punta.
na sa under. Wala.
Di ba before pa manaan itong ano yata itong Windows setup? Install na naman eh.
Ganun po ba?
Ay wait, try not tanawan sa task file na
Part 1 ko.
itong tanawan ako sa ay double check ang part 2 sa Facebook.
Windows and download. Tama.
Ako to pinakauna.
So, okay. Gisay mangod ako ang password na to. The next screen related sa kanyung
Ay oo tama, yung mga tong gisim.
Kaya meron ako password pero amo tama mga mag.
Pero feeling na ko ang naglahi lang yata ang main. Ang oh. Na siya ng part 3.
Okay, tanaw na akong task 4 ko na ako sa task 4 ko ba? Task 4 mo na itong natay kita na ako ko yun.
Ay wala. Yan start lang. Kita sa 5 ba? Kaya ang sa 5 kaya ano lang. Install naman dato.
Or if you want to keep things simple, you can use IT.com too. Like my website is
Install lang kami. Touch.
Mo daw na itong pwede ilisan or ano di ba?
Manage,
manage,
add
add
roles
roles
and
and
picture.
features. On the installation types,
Wala din ito.
Wait.
Kanina na dati.
Nag ano
Ay.
nga ito lang so. Pero nana siya ibagong i-add.
Naiba kong kaya.
Mali ako nito, Jeff. Hindi ako.
Ay, wait. Kaning folder lagi ko makita lagi. Ay,
Folder.
sa
Ang string.
Yung ano, sige, type ganyan mo sa password generator.
Ang paghinungdan mo ako kay Lasat Pandi kayo sa kanin.
Ay,
Yung
ang
ani
password
niya,
kay-
tapos 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. Mupod ako ano po. Tunog ano ko sa task 4.
Hindi ko na pa ako. Kaani. Sige lang, post cloud. Nasa baba. Authentication.
ay tama din din ang tayo.
Ay wait, balikan
Well,
ako
may name.
username.
Lang ko diri sa ano ako.
you can configure this up. Again, this is not an appropriate option for us because the IT does specify a group domain name.
Bawa na.
CCS.
Sige lang, follow na.
If
Sige, window. with manaka.com.
Ay,
Instead shows
tama ba?
Windows Server
Katong
10
nasa
Pro.
recording.
Now, this is because so if you see Windows
Dra
Server
banda,
2016,
dra.
Pero,
go ahead and choose that. If you still don't see Windows Server 2016, choose the Windows Server Technical Preview. Make sure that the domain name system or DNS server checkbox is checked. If you remember, when we installed AVDS, it said that we had to install this rule in order for the
Katudra nga part.
that the server
sa pandi 1, 2, 3, di ba?
Oo yata. Or murag walay number.
Pero wala po ko so far sa ano, bro,
Wait lang, ang name.
minutes mark wala ko ang name gani ginapangita na ako, bro. Wala man.
Wait. Mag-try ka. Connect again. Ang gamitin ako
Sige.
na name is CCS ng Yako.
Ayo, kasi kato yata door. Bro,
Domain name. Pangalan.
Dili.
Bro, dakoy na type na Lasat fan dito. CCS.
sino ba na daw?
Hindi siya.
Dili.
Kaya mabalaan mo kung naman kay online.
So katong username kanina
Wala.
tama to siya. Tama tong username. Kablok na,
Salamat.
1, 2, 3 raw butong ano to, password. Ano to, ma-remember po.
brought to the computer. Just be patient while you
Wait.
check. Once you check, these errors are pretty simple.
Ito ang pangalan sa yan.
And now it's asking us if we want to add an account team. So administrator,
Tingnan ko, try na to administrator. So ako, nag-download ko. Tao na ako yung luman nga. Ako yung type so before username or something. Ay, administrator lang
Para
gilay.
admin gid mo gigamit.
Dili ako administrator. Pero ako,
Ay, tama
Standard
na-remember
lang.
na ako.
and I'm going to type
Kaya
in
wala
my
ko eh.
password.
Ang nanuman ako, nato ko gitype nga Lasat fan. Tila ko ang katulang kani ata lang to. Kana name ata. Dili
Pero
ka
kana
lang.
yata to sa
For that
dili
account.
yata to sa dira.
And this account, if you remember, is the account that we created when we installed Windows Server
Pag-install Windows Server.
2016. So it's our domain
Okay.
administrator account. Okay. Now I'm going to click OK.
Okay, pag niya okay. Yes.
And now it's
Magaling,
asking us if we
okay.
want to add an account for the person who's going to be using this PC. Now, I'm just going to hit skip. I
Na.
need to do that. And now I'm going to choose restart now. Okay, so now the computer is going to restart. So once the computer reboots, we're going to pop out of this computer and go over to our domain controller.
Habang nag-reboot na yung controller. Thing na saan yung
So we'll just give it a second to fully load.
Basta mauto itong
Okay, so now the VM has
default
powered
password
back
lang.
on. This is the
Para
Windows 10
direct naman.
workstation. I'm going to hit Control and F,
Katong ano.
pop out of full screen mode, and
Tunay
now I'm
1,
going to
2, 3 sa
minimize
tumay.
this Windows 10 VM, and I'm going to pop open my Windows Server 2016 VM. Okay, so I'll bring this over here. Again, I'm going to hit right Control and F, and I'm in the domain controller now. So I'm going to hit right Control and Delete, and I will log into the domain administrator account. This is the same account we just used to join the computer to the domain.
Wait. Confused ko.
Ano naman?
Administrator naman na. So, kung ano nga gagawin. So,
If I select Tools, Active Directory,
or Tara.
users and computers
Wait lang. Ito yung viewer.
into the domain administrator account. This is the same account we just used to
Manage
join the
your
computer to the domain.
tools.
If I select tools, Active Directory,
Tools
users,
niya,
and computers,
active ka na.
Tara.
Users,
and if I
computer.
expand itfleet.com and click on computers, which if you
Then,
remember is the default
nasa
container
yan,
where
so
computer
kung-
accounts are placed,
Go
we can see that we have
computers.
ITF.
Yeah,
Tara. Okay. So, na-connect na to ang... So, explain na to, Ben. So, at katong video, which is first steps man nato niya, which is sayang end is wala nang connect ang yung domain controller ko to. Wait lang. Domain controller which is kani number kani daw na PC kani na PC, which is itong gamit nato pag change pag-connect ka kani. So, sayang end is basically wanna connect ang yung katong nga PC ay katong nga machine sa kanina administrator kay sayang end kay ang yung default gateway is nakitain so yung IP address is mali ata. So sa among end is natama naman since i-check na mo at first kita man yung sa start of the video i-check na mo at first kung same ba sila IP ay close but ay same ba o kanang sa IP address tapos ang default gateway same man wala na lang may change at ibuhat. So natama na may nakita naman ninyo karon it is kani connected ang katong kanina machine kani lagi natin clap kani connect kani direct sa ito ang server.
US01. So now we can drag it into another organizational unit if we'd like. We can assign GPOs to this computer. We'll get more into that later on in the course. But for now, that is how you join a workstation to a Windows domain. In this lesson,
So,
we're going to be joining.
natama naman mo, nakita naman yung ang katong nga computer dahil nga server sa mga active directories. So, mana mong task next. So, I think that's all for on our tactic, which is joining Windows 10 to our domain Windows 2016. So, thank you for listening and watching. And I hope you if you ask where our other videos, you can go to this YouTube channel and there's a playlist there which has all task 1 up to task 5 and later i-upload na mo ang task. Okay. So thank you for watching and that's all for our task.